Jessica Jones Season 2 is on Netflix and we can finally binge it. As with all of my other TV reviews, there will be some mild spoilers ahead just for some overarching plot threads, while any big twists or story spoilers will be left out completely. Season 2 follows Jessica's appearance in last year's The Defenders, where she is now being labelled as a vigilante hero, which she isn't really a big fan of. As with all of the other current Marvel shows, this is all part of the MCU Continuity, but the Netflix shows are always treated like a pocket universe, where they're only concerned about their own stories. In fact, even though there are a couple of cameos from other Marvel Netflix shows, this is probably the most standalone that these shows have been. There are absolutely no shoehorned Claire Temple cameos this time around. It'll be no surprise to some that the Defenders miniseries was the least viewed of all of these shows, thanks in no part to it following the largely disliked Iron Fist. And it seems like there's been a big conscious effort to keep these shows all separate, and focus more solely on the individual heroes, which is something that I applaud. I like being able to focus on the individual story without having to reference other heroes all the time. This season is all about Jessica digging into her past and discovering how she got her powers, and who may have caused them. This season spends far more time with Jessica using her detective and sleuthing skills, which is something we should get with a show about a private investigator. Season 1 was very much focused on Jessica dealing with the trauma and PTSD during the Kilgrave period of her life, and often put the detective work to the side. The Kilgrave plot was necessary in her overcoming the most traumatic event in her life, and as a result made for a very compelling, very troubled hero that was boosted by the grave threat of her villain. Kilgrave was manipulative, sinister, and demeaning, and made for great drama and conflict, which is why people hold Season 1 quite high. Season 2 takes its time developing its villain, instead of being much more interested in creating a conspiracy and developing this shadowy IGH group, particularly in how the company has affected different people's lives and created turmoil for the people in Jessica's life. When the villain does materialize, it's once again very complicated and brings into question certain loyalties and moralities that Jessica has since held dear. It does take time for this villain to appear though, and I imagine that's where this season will turn people away, who will be wondering when all the plot threads will come together and kick into gear. I'd say for the first 6 episodes we're very much focused on the IGH conspiracy and learning about the inner workings and cover-ups about the group, until everything does come together and it's a singular vision to the finish line. The villain does come across as more of a shadowy version of Jessica, in a sense like the Daredevil and Punisher relationship in Daredevil Season 2. What if Jessica was one bad day away from crossing the line, being someone that she isn't? Kristen Ritter again proves that she is perfect in the role of Jessica Jones, making the character feel fully formed and adding on to layers of the character that were introduced in Season 1 and The Defenders. Yeah, she's still the drunk, depressed superhero detective, but this time we're here to crack her open and figure out why she became who she is, and what she can really do with her abilities. Trish Walker, or Patsy, gets a significant arc this season. As Marvel Comics fans know, in the comics she is known as Hellcat, a superhero, and this season is very much into developing her into becoming that identity, but at the same time muddying the waters a bit, which puts into question how much of a hero she really might be, and the lengths and damage Trish will do to herself to achieve what she thinks is right, which puts her into conflict with Jessica many times over this season. Rachel Taylor pulls it off wonderfully, providing a much darker and desperate Trish here than the one we saw in Season 1. Other characters like Malcolm and Jerry Hogarth get significant time and growth given to them this season as well, with far more screen time given to both characters in involving them with the IGH case. While they have smaller arcs than Jessica or Trish, it was appreciated to have more time to develop them and make them feel more vital to the season's proceedings. Plus, more time with Carrie-Anne Moss is a bonus. Most of the newer characters that are introduced exist more as conduits to the existing characters and provide added growth and aid to the main cast. While it works in giving our characters certain payoff or depth, it does reduce any necessity for these newer characters and they just end up being somewhat shallow. Jessica Jones Season 2 will be seen as somewhat of a disappointment to some, and I will agree with them on that. It doesn't match the first season in telling a completely compelling story with a strong villain that pushes the hero and narrative forward. Season 2 is much more interested in a nuanced approach to really develop Jessica's past and question her own morality. While Season 1 took off incredibly strong in the first 6 episodes and then had pacing issues to pad out to meet the 13 total episodes, Season 2 feels like the opposite, where it's more of a slow burn, but once you get halfway into the meat of the story, the season really takes off, and the latter half of the season absolutely ends up being the best part. Whether you'll feel like enduring a first half that takes its time will be up to your preferences, but if you stick with it, you'll be rewarded with a fascinating deconstruction on what makes Jessica Jones who she is. Oh, and suddenly this season had way more Spider-Man and Captain America references than I was anticipating, which not to the point of anyone just showing up yet. Jessica Jones Season 2 gets a 7.5 out of 10 from me. Guys, I hope you like this review. If you want to see more reviews just like this one, stay right here for your Monofix. Bye guys.